So we're talking about the assignment sheet for the proposal paper here. So for this paper, you do not want too big of a topic. So we're not going to solve the Middle East crisis. We're not going to solve world peace or even the healthcare system. We're looking for something that's a little more local, a little more hands-on. Maybe you have personal experience with the topic or you know something about it from people around you, that kind of idea. So nothing too big for this one. So at the top, I've given you some ideas of the kinds of places that you might be able to come up with some ideas from. So it could be something related to campus, to OCTC. It could be something related to an event or a class or online classes or class policy or school policy, something that you see potential solutions for. Same thing with community, though. If you pick a campus or a community problem, keep in mind you're going to have a little bit of background information. My example for this is like if I were going to talk about recycling on campus, to my knowledge, a lot of the recycling seems to end up in the trash, but I don't really know if that's true. I'd have to find that out. And I'd have to find out a little bit more about whose responsibility it would be if the recycling bins in the classroom buildings are meant to get picked up. So I'd need a little bit of information. Now, part of this paper is going to involve an interview. So you might be able to get some of that information from the interview. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. But if it is campus community problem, again, you need to have enough background information that you can talk about it reasonably. You're not going to suggest something that's already been tried and didn't work, for example. It could be something related to social media or online life. So I had, as an example, somebody wrote to their sibling about their younger nephew who they felt was addicted to screens. And I've had people write about themselves being addicted to social media or their friend group having a bullying problem online. Those kinds of things could work for this. So you're not even necessarily writing about all social media use problems. You can kind of narrow it down to a group or an individual even. You are going to write this paper to a specific audience as well if it helps to think about it that way, like the person that wrote to their sibling about their child and their screen use time. A problem related to area public or private K through 12 schools. So if you're a high school student or a recent graduate or you have a kid in school, you could write about things that you see going on there that maybe need some solutions. I had somebody last semester that had a health issue and they had the paperwork to get some special provisions for that, but they didn't feel like the school offered enough assistance. So that kind of thing could work. Problem or upcoming decision in your personal or family life. So problem you, your friends, your relatives, etc. Either are trying to make a decision about or problem that you're facing, something that you're trying to resolve. So this could be anything from roommate conflicts to a chore list to where to go to vacation. I had a student once write about her adult son had some dogs that he was keeping not only as pets, but also he was hoping to breed dogs a little bit, not like a puppy farm, but just, to have a little bit of income. And he ended up keeping them at her house because he didn't have a yard. And as you might expect, he didn't end up helping that much with the dogs. And so she was writing about how we could work this out so that he got to keep his dogs, but she didn't have to be responsible for taking care of them, picking up after them, feeding and cleaning and so forth. So that kind of thing, even though it seems kind of small, could work. Could be things like whether or not you want to go on to a 4-year or start your career. It could be things like whether you want to buy a new car or you want to try to share a car. Any of those sorts of things might actually work pretty well. So the bulk of your paper is actually going to be about the solution, not just the problem. So kind of after you introduce the problem, you're going to come up with a solution and you're going to propose that solution in some detail. So this can be either one big idea to solve the problem, or it can be a series of maybe 2 to 4 steps that are all part of the same plan. But you're going to give that solution that you propose for the problem, and then you're going to actually argue the solution in the paper. So some of the arguments might be, I think that idea costs too much, or we don't have the staff to carry out that idea, or whatever those things might be. Those might be some cons. On the pro side, maybe it's worth the money because it's going to help people, and you might even make more money in the long run if it's a business or a workplace or something if you spend some money now. So you're going to have 2 pros about the solution and 2 cons about the solution. Now, for this reason, it is kind of ideal if you propose a solution that's a little bit sort of the dream scenario. So what you'd really like to see happen, even if you know it's not particularly likely, because this is your sort of dream plan, and then you're going to argue it. So you need something to argue with, right? So maybe your dream plan is a little more expensive, or maybe it's going to require more time than you have, or something like that. Okay, so propose a solution, argue 2 pros about the solution, 2 cons about the solution, and then the last part of the paper will be a compromise. So now that you have argued about the solution, considered it a little bit more, you're going to take that original solution, that sort of dream scenario plan, and you're going to revise it. You can either scrap the original and replace it with something better, as long as the new idea doesn't have its own problems, or you can come up with a revision of that original solution that maybe is less expensive, or there's a way to pay for it, or it's more reasonable in other ways, it's more fair in other ways. So we're going to talk about fairness and kind of considering your audience a lot with this paper. Okay, so you are going to conduct an interview for this paper. This means you're going to do the interview. I'll have you turn this in as a separate journal before the paper is due, where you give me your questions, their answers, and talk to me a little bit about why you chose that person. So if you're arguing about, if you're living at home with your parents and you're arguing about chore distribution, you might interview one of your parents about their policies and why they have the ones they do, or how they feel about the idea that you're proposing. Or maybe one of your siblings could be interviewed. If it's something about a school, then you might interview the counselor or a teacher, or somebody that's directly involved with the problem or the solution, or both, right? So keep in mind as you think about your topic ideas that you are going to have to conduct this little miniature interview with at least 3 questions, and you're going to have to use those answers in your paper, either as quotation or paraphrase. So it's like a little tiny research project that's built into this, but it's also where you can get some additional ideas about the strengths and weaknesses of your plan or the problem in general. Okay? I am going to ask you to cite that interview. Very, very simple, basic citation for this one. You don't need any additional sources. Obviously, if you do use any outside sources, those need to be cited, and of course the paper needs to be your own work. So this assignment sheet's on Blackboard, and I'm going to ask you to tell me about your topic ideas very soon. So if you have any questions, you're not sure if an idea will work or not, or if a proposal is a good fit for the paper, just go ahead and email me about those, and I will check in on your topic soon.